What are you feeding your mind right now? If it's social media, are you tired of doom scrolling through the angry comment sections and political rants yet? What if you use that time to actually fix your marriage? Welcome to the free Married and Connected School community. It's like social media, but without the ads, without the judgment, and without the noise. Just real self-paced tools that get you out of that roommate phase starting today. Inside, you get an exact blueprint for a weekly State of the Union meeting with your spouse. We're cutting mental load, we're stopping miscommunications, and we're breaking that exhausting loop of doom argument once and for all. Plus, you get instant access to workshops on overcoming resentment and bringing the actual fun back into your marriage. We have a dedicated space just for guys jumping into Forging Fortitude. It's a 10-week intensive to help you step into your masculine leadership and become the husband and man that God called you to be. And for ladies joining Edifying Eden, we're stepping out of that controlling, nagging era into our soft, nurturing, feminine era, even if your husband hasn't taken the reins yet. Either way, you can take responsibility for your side of the street. Stop scrolling the internet and start investing in your home. The community is 100% free with options to purchase certain courses. Click the link in the show notes and join the Married and Connected School community today. I'll see you inside. Marriage isn't supposed to feel like roommates, but it doesn't have to feel like a war either. Hi, I'm Cameron Alaricky, certified marriage coach and a relationship expert. Every week on Married and Connected, I bring you real talk, hard truths, and practical tools you can start using right away. Whether you've been married 2 years or 42, this is where you'll find hope, encouragement, and steps that actually work. So let's make your marriage feel good again, starting right now. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Married and Connected podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Alaricky. If you have ever felt like you are about to lose your marbles in the middle of a child's meltdown, you're going to want to turn the volume up for this one and maybe pause it and come back when you can actually take notes. I am thrilled to be sitting down with Melissa Schultz. She is a board-certified behavior analyst who has spent over 2 decades, starting at just 18 years old, in specialized schools and residential centers, mastering the art of staying grounded. We talk a lot on this podcast about emotional sobriety. This is going to be another way of thinking about that and adding that to your life. She is a powerhouse entrepreneur who built an in-home behavioral health company from the ground up, leading a team of 75. But most importantly to this, she is a mom of 3, raising 2 neurodiverse kiddos of her own. She's taken her master's in psychology and her years of professional experience and turned it into a proven 5-step framework designed to help you go from feeling overwhelmed to feeling truly capable. And I think as mothers and fathers, we can all relate to this. So she is here to show us that we can handle whatever our children throw our way on any given day without losing our minds. So Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and for our conversation.
Definitely. So just right off the bat, let's jump into this. I spent almost 15 years in the educational sector.
Mhm.
I taught kindergarten through 2nd grade, saw a lot of different personalities, a lot of different learning, obstacles and things. And honestly, it wasn't until I had my own kids that I was like, whoa, okay, these 2
Mhm.
children came from my DNA, but they're very wildly different. So kind of talk about what neurodivergence is. We hear a lot about it, but what does this mean? And is neurodivergent, neurospicy, is all of that the same?
Yeah. Okay. So neurodivergent is like a term that people are more commonly using. And basically, it is to describe a category of people that have diagnoses that make the person's brain just process the world differently than like a typical person. And if you're
Mm.
listening to this, I have to do air quotes whenever I say like normal or typical because
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of those people, but I hear they're out there, right? And so there are just some kids that the way they're born, their brain just works differently than maybe ours do or a neurotypical person's
Yeah.
brain works. And it's not their fault. It's not their parents' fault. Like no one picked that. And there's like so many amazing superpowers that come along with it. But the way they work is just different than like a typical kid. And so that
Yeah.
like the typical parenting strategies or even expectations don't always work for those kids. So the diagnoses that most people are familiar with that kind of fall into this category would be ADHD, autism, dyslexia, There's a whole bunch more, like, maybe less known terms that
Yeah.
also kind of fall under this umbrella, but it's just people that process different parts of the world a little differently.
Yeah, that's good to know. That's good to know. I didn't realize that like dyslexia and dysgraphia would
Mhm.
be part of that as well.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, I have 2 neurodivergent
Yeah.
children. So
Me too. Yeah.
both
Alright.
of my children are neurodivergent.
Yes.
Um, which makes a lot of sense in terms
Mhm.
of parenting and why what I did with Mason at, he's 16 now, but what I did with him doesn't at all work for Zane,
Yeah.
who is 5.
Yeah.
And Um, what's interesting about that, we didn't get Mason's diagnosis for dysgraphia until he was a 5th grader, but I
Uh-huh.
knew, like,
Yeah.
as a
Yep.
mom, you just know.
You
You
know. Mhm.
just know that something's not clicking here.
Yes. Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is another reason, I was a teacher, but the public school system absolutely failed us in that I pushed from kindergarten knowing that something was not right with Mason's handwriting,
Mhm.
and they kept
Mhm.
telling me, "That's normal, that's normal." I'm a
Yeah.
teacher too. I know
Yeah.
what's normal and what's
Yeah.
not, but when you have these kids that you just know as their
Mhm.
parents, where do you even start? Where do you even start trying to get them help? Where do you even start, like, trying to figure out what strategies work best for them?
Yeah. I think, like, sometimes the hardest part for a lot of parents is starting.
Yeah.
So not even necessarily even knowing, but getting to the point where they're willing to start. I have a
Mhm.
lot of conversations with parents who are like maybe doing a consultation with me, like interest, like deep in their heart, they know that something's going on and they need more support. But in the same conversation, they're also like talking themselves out of it and gaslighting themselves.
Yeah.
So like, oh my gosh, he's hitting me and he's 9. I know that's not normal and I don't know what to do and I'm yelling more than I want. But also, he's a good kid. He's doing good in
Yeah.
school. He'll probably grow out of it. It'll be fine. And so I think, like, that's, like, a really big barrier is, like, sometimes we will ignore that and sometimes it's a lot to process and it's hard and we don't want it to be true, and that's
Yeah.
okay, but, like, don't gaslight yourself if you do feel like there's something wrong. And, yeah, the best doctors and the best teachers don't know your kid as well as you do, and they are going to usually the default is, "Oh, it's fine," right? That
Mhm.
is just kind of the default, so you have to know and, like, trust your gut and, like, keep asking, keep advocating. I've had to do tons of advocating for myself, and even with my background, like, I joke, like, I've sat in, like, most of the seats at the IEP table, like, because I was a
Right.
school psychologist, I was, the administrator,
Yep.
I've been in all the seats, never really expecting that later on I would be sitting in the parent seat, but I've been there now, and even knowing all the other seats, it's hard to be in those meetings with all these people looking at me, right? Where I
Yeah.
know what's going on and everyone's like, "Oh, it's fine, it's not that big a deal." I mean, we've actually had a great experience with our public schools for my neurodiverse kids, and I'm really thankful for that, but it has taken a lot of work and advocacy and a lot of trusting my gut and not listening to the, "Oh, it's fine."
It's fine.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I think, like, that's where I would start. If you have that feeling in your gut that there's just something going on more and more support is needed for you as a parent, for your kid in school, at home, wherever, like, trust your gut. And so the next step question is so valid. And honestly, that's a hard question to answer because it really depends. I mean, it depends on the concerns, right? If it is like more of an academic concern, I would really work with your teachers to get that assessment done. And sometimes, I mean, there's a lot of kids, like a lot of my work too is like kind of coming in the gap because there are a lot
Mm,
of kids that like don't need support at school, like behaviorally or maybe academically, but also they're not killing it at school. They're not really successful at school. Or, even at home, maybe they don't have a diagnosis yet or they don't qualify if the parents have tried. The doctors are usually like, but like 100% they need that extra support. And
yeah.
so it's like finding that extra support, whatever it is for your kid. Where I come in for a lot of families is I don't need a diagnosis to support your kid. Like, I don't care. You tell me like what the behaviors are and we're going to work it out. And if I do think a diagnosis would be beneficial, I'll tell you, and you can pursue that or not. I'll walk with you every step, and I'll help you figure out the next steps for your kid. But also, if you don't want to, that's fine. Because, like, from my perspective, we're just talking about behaviors and skills. Like,
Yeah.
what is your kid doing and what skills are missing? Right. And
Yeah.
so that's what I really support parents on knowing how to teach their kids because all these types of kids, so my specialty is like the strong willed, highly sensitive, and neurodiverse kids supporting their parents. And the reason why I've kind of grouped those kids together is like a very common thread is really big feelings and a lot
Mhm.
of behavior challenges. So it's like a
Mhm.
lot of good parents that have, read the books and listened to the podcast and they're doing their best to figure this out. But everything that they're trying doesn't quite seem to work for their unique kid. And so
Mhm.
that's where I come in, where I'm like, oh, yeah, I got you. I got your kid. Here's the skills your child's missing. And it's different for everyone, right? This is not a cookie cutter thing. If it was a cookie cutter thing, the books would work, but it's not. It's, like, very custom for how your child learns, for your style, and also, I do a lot of work with parents on how to, like, release their own triggers about it, right? Because 'Cause we're so
Mm.
nervous and worried, and we get so frustrated, and we're so angry, and as long
Yeah.
as we have all those stuck emotions, we're not gonna be able to be calm and grounded and, like, present for what our kids need in those moments, and so these parents need a lot more support as well.
Okay, so you mentioned the strong-willed, highly sensitive, and what was the third one that you mentioned?
Neurodiverse.
Okay, so for these children,
Mhm.
um, because as I'm thinking, like, either one of my kids, I'm like, "Check, check, check, yep,
Mhm.
yep."
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
how do you parent those children versus a child who's not strong-willed or doesn't argue or doesn't fight you to the death on the one word out of the sentence that you used that he's like, "But it's
It was
I'm not
not 100% correct.
devastated. I'm not devastated on this. I'm just disappointed." And I'm like, "For the love of God, why does it matter? Like,
Yep.
it
You
wasn't
in my
right."
house
Like,
too? Okay.
I know, and this is my 5-year-old we're talking
Yeah.
about. He's 1. I'm like,
Yeah, I
he's
think,
oh my
like,
gosh.
we all kinda have, like, this default parenting style, right? And it's
Yeah,
usually exactly how our parents raised us because that's what was modeled to us for 18 years, so that makes sense. So I
right.
think, like, with most typical kids, if you have a relatively healthy, parenting style, you can use that with a typical kid, and it usually works most of the time. You don't have to do, like, a lot of work, or maybe you will read a parenting book or 2, and, like, that will give you the little lift up you need to be able
Yeah.
to figure out your kid. What I have found for neurodiverse kids, though, is like usually your default parenting style will not work for the kids, and they each need a very specific parenting style. So I have 3 kids, and I parent them all totally different.
Mm,
Each of them I could respond to the same behavior, the same words very differently for each of my 3 kids because it's based on how they learn, right?
mm,
Their coping skills and also their age, like where they are at in their development. And, like, none of those 3 styles are, like, the way that I, like, had wanted to be a parent necessarily, right? None of it's like, "This is
right.
how I want to parent." But
Yeah.
it's, like, figuring out exactly what each one needs and giving that to them. And then with 3 kids, that's, like, a lot, that's a lot, but it works. And once you
Mhm.
figure it out, it makes it easy because 'cause I'm like, "Yeah, you can have that big meltdown, and that's okay. I know exactly why you're having that meltdown, right? I know exactly how to respond. I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm not even that stressed out by it. I know how to handle it, and now we just move on with our day." And with 2
Mhm.
neurodiverse kids, right? Just because I know the right response doesn't mean there's no meltdowns. We're not trying to go
Right.
for perfection, right? I have normal kids that are not like perfect little robots. So they have the feelings and the behaviors. But what I find is like I am able to still have lots of joy, even with the behaviors. I'm not surprised by them. I know how to handle them, and we very quickly can recover and move on. And I think, like,
Yeah.
that's, like, the piece that I think is missing for so many families who are raising these kids and why I'm so passionate is, like, when we're feeling overwhelmed by behaviors all the time, we're so stressed out, we're walking on eggshells in our own house, so much joy is lost.
Mhm.
Like, all we wanted to have these kids, and we love them with all of our heart, but we dread each day, right?
Yeah.
We're right now, I don't know when this is coming out, but in May, right, so many people I'm talking to are dreading this summer or dreading, the holiday breaks, and then feeling guilty because I feel like they should be looking forward to it. But
Right.
that's what I love to do is, like, when you know how to handle your kids, you understand them, you know why they're doing that, you know what to do, all that joy comes back, and you can just enjoy them even with the meltdowns and the behaviors.
Okay, so what's easiest for you? Like, if I were to give you examples of a behavior and you tell us how to handle it, or, like, how What's the easiest way for
Okay.
you to convey this information?
Okay, I do have a 5-step process that I
Okay.
use,
Okay.
so I can kinda
And this is
highlight
for
that for
any
you.
child
This is for
that's
any
struggling.
child for any behavior, okay?
Okay. All
And
right.
so maybe you give me an example, and I can
Okay.
kinda walk you through all the 5 steps. It can be a made up example, a real example, whatever
Oh
you
no,
want
I
me to.
will give you. I will.
Okay.
We're all about vulnerability and
Let's
authenticity on this
yeah,
podcast, so
okay.
I will give you the straight one.
Okay,
Both of my children. So I have a 16-year-old and a 5-year-old,
okay.
which I have realized are the exact same emotions, just on different levels.
100%. Mhm.
My 16-year-old will come in and be like, "Oh my God, why are you throwing a fit about that?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, sir. Do you not remember 7 minutes ago when you were throwing a fit that looked exactly like this?
Uh-huh.
Like, come on, man." Arguing. Gosh, there's so many examples, but I would say, like, I would tell Zane, um, "We're not going anywhere today." And that's one of his things, is like he wants to go somewhere every single day.
Uh-huh.
And if we go, like, he doesn't like being at home. And it's not, he loves home, like home is safe and all of that. It's
Yeah.
just he just likes to be on the go.
Yeah.
Whereas my oldest is like, I don't want to go anywhere ever, and I don't want to see people. So,
Okay.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, we have a rule in our house that no one is allowed to like the same meal on the same night,
Oh, yeah.
because
That happened in
that's
my house
just not
too.
going to
Oh,
happen.
no.
Yeah.
Right.
I made meatball lasagna last night, and one of them was like, "This is disgusting," and the other one was like, "This is the most delicious thing I've ever had in my life." All right. So,
Okay.
good job
So
following the rules, guys.
that was like such a perfect example of what usually people come to me with, right? It's like kind of a lot of things are going on for multiple kids. Like that's so typical. So the first step in my process, because there are a lot of things with these kids, right? It's not just one thing.
Every kid's
So
different.
the first step is I actually have you pick one behavior for one kid. And
Okay.
here's why. If I were to give you ways to solve all of those things, and I could, but then you would leave this call with so much to work on. It
Yeah.
was really overwhelming. Maybe you would try to fix all of it at once and then get way too overwhelmed and all the kids would be upset and then you just go back to where you were. And
Right.
that's what I think most parents do is they're like, okay, I'm going to read this book and I'm going to try all of it at once. And like, okay, we're like, throwing away the TV and we're throwing away all the, no more sugar. And like, we just make these huge changes
Right.
and then get super overwhelmed. And then we have questions and the book can't answer your questions.
Right.
And then we find it's easier just to go back to where we started, but then we did all of that work and we're so exhausted for no progress. So
Yeah.
I help you instead. We learn to like pick one thing and then the plan takes you through exactly what to do, but then we're going to have to troubleshoot it a little bit. But at least
Yeah.
then you're trying a really good guess for your family and then we evaluate how it went and now you're at least taking steps in the same direction instead of going over here and then going back and then going over here and going back and then going over here and going
Yeah.
back. And so it's like all that effort is actually making progress. So if you had to pick one of these behaviors for one kid, tell me.
I think I'm gonna go with arguing, because I think a
Okay.
lot of parents deal with that.
Yeah.
So let's
Okay.
go with
Okay. And that is for your 16-year-old?
either
Or
one of
for,
them.
okay, pick one of them.
Yeah, let's go with the 16-year-old.
Okay. And what was his name again?
Mason.
Misa. Okay. Okay. Can you give me like an example of a time you argued? Is he the one where you say one word is different and he'll start arguing with you?
Oh no, that's my 5-year-old.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. Well, Mason kind of does it too.
Okay.
His is more. He's 16, and a
Mhm.
lot of this is does kind of fall under the neurotypical as well,
Yeah.
just because, like, he's 16 and I'm an adult, and so, like, automatically you're a moron because
Of
you're an
course,
adult,
because he
and,
knows
like,
everything. He
yeah,
knows
yeah,
everything. Yeah.
and you can't tell him anything.
No.
So that would kind of be that thing. Um, I don't really have an example of what he would argue about, other
Okay.
than, like, okay, here's one.
Good.
If I say, "Hey, you need to clean your room,"
Okay.
and his room smells like a garbage dump,
Okay.
and it's got dishes everywhere, and he's like, "What? It is clean. What? It's fine."
Okay.
I feel like that's pretty typical of a teenager too, but, like,
Okay. No, that's perfect. Okay. So, is it usually he's arguing and you give him an instruction? Do you find when you're
yeah,
asking him to
I
do
think,
something?
if I'm asking him
Okay.
to do something, there's always or if I'm asking him to take accountability for something, like his grades, or did you do this
Okay.
Did you do this assignment or something like that?
Okay. He'll just argue with you about it a lot.
Yeah, and it's not even I can't even say that it's like what we would consider like fighting about it.
Yeah.
It's just like he's fighting to have a different perspective. He wants you just to accept his perspective and move on instead of
Okay.
being like, "No, there's a lesson here. Let's learn the lesson," kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. I think the accountability thing might be a little bit different. So for the
Okay.
so I would focus in on when I ask him to do an instruction, he gives me yeah, he's arguing with me a lot. Does he
Yeah.
eventually clean his room? Like, does he just make a few comments that are like, "It's fine."
I
Okay,
feel
he
like if
wants it.
I didn't ever say any which okay, so here's the other thing,
Okay.
is this may lead us into a completely different topic,
Yep.
but I just did a podcast episode, I don't know, like 4 or 5 back
Uh,
on, executive functioning,
uh-huh.
and I feel like this is what's missing. Not only with our kids, but then a lot of us
Mhm.
that grew up in the '80s and '90s, I feel like the neurodivergence is there almost for everyone on some
Mhm.
scale,
Mhm.
but it was missed. And
Yeah.
so then it was like, I feel like that's what's also led to us as adults having these filters of like, I'm stupid, I'm not good enough,
Mhm.
all of
Right.
these things. And
Or
it's
something's
not
wrong with
crap.
me when it's
Yeah,
like, that's just
something's
how your
wrong.
brain works. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so then we're married to these people and we're like, oh, you're 40 years old and just now getting diagnosed with ADD or
Right.
ADHD.
Yep.
How do we how do we even navigate this? But at the same
Okay.
time, that executive functioning piece, I'm trying, as a parent, we're trying to teach our children these executive
Okay.
functioning skills, and they're just not there.
Yeah. And so Mason is neurodiverse.
Yeah, he has dyslexia and dysgraphia.
That would be kind of step one is like really figuring out specifically what we're looking at. And I
Okay.
love like it's if you like are listening to this conversation, I want everyone, all your listeners to notice how like started out with like a lot of broad things, right?
Right.
And then we focused on arguing, and then we actually broke down the arguing kind of into different categories.
Right.
And now we're going to focus on following instructions, which does
Okay.
have a lot of executive functioning, especially cleaning your room, which I can talk about. Okay, so
Sure.
that's step one. Is we're just going to get really clear on what it is. All
Okay.
right. Sometimes behaviors are like kids not listening or arguing is so broad and vague that can look really different for different kids, right? I can talk to 100 moms in one day and you could all say that your kids don't listen or don't argue and you're all going to like, but it's going to be different for every single kid. So never am I like, oh, if your kid doesn't listen, this is exactly how you respond because it really depends on all the other factors I'm going to tell you about. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I would have you do though is I would have you actually start writing down whenever this happens, when you give
Okay.
him an instruction, I would have you start by just noticing what's happening. All right. Yeah, I wouldn't have you change anything, but that would be the first step. I have people write down like it's like the ABCs, the antecedent, behavior, consequence. So you would write
Okay.
down the maybe the instruction you gave him, whatever was happening before he started the arguing. You write that down. Then you write down kind of what he said, and then you would write down whatever you normally do after, without really changing it, without judging what you're doing. And
Okay.
I usually ask my clients for like 3 to 5 days of that data.
Okay.
Alright. And even just taking that data, you can try it, have your listeners try it, it's gonna give you a lot more insight on that specific behavior. You're gonna
Okay.
understand it a lot more when you just start, like, getting really curious about the patterns, because so often we just go around putting out fires all the time that never are we, like, taking a step back and trying to look for those patterns. So this
Mm.
makes you get intentional and look for it. Okay? So that's my step 1. Step 2 is we are going to talk about your triggers.
Okay.
So tell me, like, what is the worst thing about this when you are like, your room is disgusting, and he's like, no, it's great. What comes up for you?
Well, okay, so this is the thing. I mentioned in your intro that we talk a lot about emotional sobriety.
Yep.
Um, Before I went through emotional sobriety training, like now
Uh-huh.
it doesn't bother me. Like you want to live in a trash pit, like cool.
Yeah.
That's you're gonna figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
Um, Before I think the trigger was that it looked bad.
Okay.
And so I judged myself and I
Uh-huh.
was embarrassed on the fact that
Mhm.
my house wasn't perfectly clean.
Mhm.
So if someone, nobody ever comes over, but
Yeah.
if they did, they would judge me on the way that my house looked
It
based
feels
on
like
what
you're
my
failing on the mom report card.
yes.
That's like on the mom report
Yes.
card and you're getting an F if everything is not perfect. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So that makes perfect sense. That's awesome that you're aware of that. That's so common for a lot of people. So I love that you like shared that because I'm sure a lot of your listeners are like, me too. Right.
Yeah.
We all have different things on our parenting report card, but whatever we put on there, we usually give ourselves F for it and then we feel terrible. Right. So,
Perfectionism is a very common filter that we all share. So,
yes,
yeah, I would agree.
100%. Okay. But like for you, if it genuinely didn't bother you anymore, you wouldn't have mentioned it as a behavior problem. So tell me, there's something about it that is
The
still bothering you.
arguing
Yes.
still bothers me in that. So the thought process in my
Yes.
head is,
Tell me.
if you're arguing with me,
Okay.
eventually you're going to argue with your boss or
Okay.
your,
Yep.
your wife or whomever.
Yep.
And you're never going to take accountability for the fact that, yes, this does need taken care of. And you're either going to lose your job, lose your marriage,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Yeah.
You're not going to be as successful
Yeah.
as you need to be.
Okay. That was so good. Okay. So here's what's happening for you in the moment. When he is arguing with you,
Hmm.
your brain is not really present in the moment with him. Part of your brain is going to mean that this argument equals later he's going to be jobless and divorced, right?
Yeah.
Like your brain is doing all of those things in this moment. So your reaction is not just to the moment. It's actually like that's very activating to our nervous system. If we imagine our kids like homeless on the street, right? Because they can't hold down a job and they've got fired and they lost, they got
Right.
left. So you're kind of going into fight or flight in these moments because your brain is perceiving danger to survival in this
Hmm.
argument. Which it makes sense. Of course, I want him to learn how to take like, I want all of those things for him, right? We don't want him to be jobless. But if in these moments when he is having this behavior, if you get super triggered, you can't stay calm and respond in the best way because your brain isn't fully here. Part of your brain is like freaking out. When we're in fight or flight, there's no blood in our brain, right? We can't really think. We can't really access our rational thought. We're like ready to run or fight. All the blood goes to our limbs, which is not super helpful if you're trying to get your teen to like clean their room, right?
Right.
You want the brain to be working more. And then he might be co-regulating with you. So now he's going into fight or flight and he's freaking out about cleaning his room too. So then any logic that he has is also maybe leaving the building.
Right.
So that's a really important thing that we want to just kind of release for you. All right. So I have a lot of things that I take my clients through to just release that. Sometimes even just hearing this is what my brain and body is doing. Oh, I don't have to really do that. Right. Like I can be
Hmm.
confident that I'm going to be teaching him all of these skills and like all this is about the room right now. And I'm just going to stay here. I'm not going to make my mind is just making this equal this terrible future. And those do not actually, that's not fact.
Okay.
I can teach him accountability separately. I can still have that be a really big priority. That's what we want for him. But in this moment, focusing on that is taking me out of this moment. I want to be present in this moment to handle this
Okay.
argument. Okay.
So step 2 is being present in the moment.
It's understanding our trigger so we can be present in the moment. Releasing
Okay.
our trigger. Yeah. So the 5 steps are actually guide. So G is gathering data. U is understanding understanding and releasing your triggers. All right. Then we move on to I, which is investigating the cause. That's step 3. This is
Okay.
when we really want to figure out why he is doing this.
Okay.
So if you had, because like everything our kids are doing, there's something they're getting out of it. It's something, it's working for them, right?
Mhm.
And if I had to guess, right, when he is arguing with you about doing tasks, he is like, the task is getting put off for a while,
Yeah.
right? It might be getting him a lot of attention and a big reaction from you. Is that fair?
Yeah, it doesn't
Uh-huh.
really get a big reaction anymore.
Okay. Okay.
Um, I can definitely see the procrastination though. That
Yeah.
like if he's arguing about it, he doesn't have to do
Exactly.
it. And
Exactly.
so okay, yeah, that makes that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. So, I mean, this is, and again, I have a whole thing that I would take you through to confirm that, but that's a very common for that. If it's like task avoidance, right? Yeah. At least if I'm arguing with you, I don't have to start cleaning. Maybe I do have to
Yeah.
clean eventually. Maybe I get out of it altogether, but it's still enough. I don't have to start right now because now we're arguing. And if he likes to argue, which a lot of teens just enjoy arguing, right now he's just getting the fun of this like mental battle with you, this power struggle, and he doesn't have to clean. So it's like a win-win for him.
Yeah.
So there's really no reason he's going to change his behavior unless you change what you're doing.
Okay.
Because right now it's working for him. It's a
Right.
win-win for him. He has
Yeah,
no
that
reason to
totally makes
change.
sense. I never
right?
thought about the task avoidance. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And a lot of our arguers or our negotiators, they love that. Like
Yeah.
they're like, hey, it's worth it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
engage in this with you, right? And I think
Absolutely.
that like applies to all kids. Like anytime you are in a power struggle with them, right? You're arguing with them, like you've lost already.
Mm,
Period. Because yeah, now you've engaged them in this like battle over it. And instead we want to just be like the calm, sturdy person that you can't argue. It takes two to argue. It takes two to get in a power struggle.
absolutely. Absolutely. So much of this, by the way,
Mhm.
if listeners aren't catching this, so much of this applies to marriage too.
100%.
Love it. Okay, keep going.
I don't wanna, like, tell everyone about and analyze your spouse, but 100% this could also work for all of that.
Well,
Um,
even just like the arguing, like it takes two to argue, and
yes.
there's a reason why they're arguing. Are they arguing to be right, or are they
Mhm.
arguing to get attention? Are they
Yeah.
arguing for a cause that maybe is important to them but not important to you? The
Mhm.
getting curious
Yeah,
instead of just being like, no, this is what it is.
yeah,
Getting curious and understanding the
yeah.
triggers, yours and theirs. Yeah, it all makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it all comes together. So that it would be step 3 is, like, what is, like, the more technical term is, like, the functional, like, what is he getting out of the behavior, right? So we
Yep.
know, like, for him, this is, like, a powerful reward or, like, payout. And I want you to even imagine now, like, when you're arguing with him about this, you're, like, throwing money at him.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Like, he's getting paid, like, you don't mean to, you're a great mom, but, like, accidentally, he's getting all this money during the argument. So, of
Yeah.
course, he's still gonna do it, all right? So now we move on to step 4, and step 4, we're gonna look at, like, everything we can do before the behavior even happens so that
Okay.
your kid doesn't even need to use it anymore. All right.
Okay.
So high level, there's a lot of different things we can pick for this step, but like high level for you, what I might like consider is like first maybe having something set up for chores where there's something else in it for him for cleaning his room that's more powerful than the argument.
Mm, okay.
So like we need to have a motivation to do the chores because he's not motivated to do it right now.
And I think that's the missing key. I
But
don't know. I'll have to figure out what that is.
yeah,
What
yeah,
is
I
the
was
D for number 4? What is the D
Or
word?
deter the behavior. I tried to make it fit into the guide acronym, so it's a little weird. But basically, we're just trying to set things up so that the child doesn't even need to use that behavior. So
Yeah.
another thing I might do for like cleaning your room or other tasks that he's arguing about a lot, and this helps with that executive functioning piece, is I would make it really clear what clean means.
Okay.
I would have a really good definition. Sometimes, like when I've been teaching my kids as they're, when they're more like your younger's age, like I'll go through and put everything where it goes and everything is pretty well labeled so they know, right? You'd want to make this a little bit more. My oldest is 12 right now, so I'm not quite
Yeah.
there. But as they were growing up, it was like this is everything has a home. You know exactly where it goes. Sometimes that's the confusion. Like sometimes we're even like we don't even know. I've talked to some parents. And I'm like, how do you feel when you clean their room? Like, oh, I feel stressed out when I clean their room because I don't know where to put everything. There's too much stuff. And I'm like, well, if you as the adult feel overwhelmed
Yeah.
cleaning up their mess, then of course they can't, right? So I maybe would whatever, go through, organize it if needed. And then I'll even take pictures for my more visual kids. Like this is how it should look like. And that really helps. Because then
Yeah.
I'm not like nitpicking little things. It doesn't depend on my mood. It doesn't depend on the day. This helps for our neurodiverse kids that want it to be more concrete. I'm like, hey, go look at the picture and does your room match the picture? That's
Love
all.
that.
Right?
Okay.
Or I'll
That's
I,
good.
I'll even list out like, okay, that means checking under your bed because they'll throw everything under the bed, right?
Yeah.
That means
Or in the
laundry has
closet.
to actually be in the laundry basket, not
Yeah.
just near it or on top of it. So I
Yeah.
try to get a specific, and you don't have to do that forever, but like you can think of like the cleaning the room is probably just a skill that he's not really great at yet.
Right.
It's not fun. He doesn't care. There's no motivation. And it's like a lot of effort to do it and so many opportunities for arguing, which he's really good at and is much more fun.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is be super clear about our expectations, right? So then we're just taking out all the arguing,
Okay.
right? Then if you do check it and you're like, oh look, like this is in the picture, like this looks different. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, and I'm like not even mad. I'm just like, huh, like this
Interesting.
looks the
Yeah.
same. This looks the same. I love all of that, but like I'm noticing a difference right here. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be like some ways we could like things we can do ahead of time that like might just solve the not it doesn't solve it perfectly ever, but it's going to take a lot of the pressure off of it just by like relieving those things.
Okay.
We're also and a lot of the step 4 is looking at what skills he's missing. Okay. So
And
that's where
that's
the
where the
pictures
executive functioning comes in.
exactly. That's where the pictures will help. Also, sometimes kids are really overwhelmed by it a lot. So if we, I mean, for 16-year-olds, if once they know this, I'll let them more do it maybe once a week. But what I'll tell kids that are starting out, and maybe you need to start with this, is we do it every day for a while because otherwise it can just get so overwhelming. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas if we do it every day, they only have one day's worth of dishes and clothes to put away, right? Only one day of spoons that are in weird spots. Whereas if
Yeah.
it gets to go too long, it's like almost longer than they can handle.
Mm,
So I would notice that as well. Like, what is the best frequency for him with his current skills where it's
mhm.
not like exceeding his overwhelm limit, where it does feel pretty quick to go through and like swoop it all out.
'Kay.
And that might have to be once a day for a little bit.
'Kay.
Okay. And so then we're going to move on to step 5. And step 5 is like it basically encouraging appropriate behaviors. And so this is what everyone wants to know. Like, what do I do? Like, right? Like your first question is more like, how do I make him stop arguing? Right.
Mhm.
And I take you through all these other steps until I answer that question for a reason. Because you might have been doing the right things. A lot of parents have actually tried a lot of the things that I've said, but they've tried it while they're triggered. They've tried it while they're
Mm,
they tried it
possible.
without
Yeah.
understanding why the kid's doing it. So maybe they're accidentally reinforcing it, right? So like this order is very intentional. But what I love to do, yeah, 2 things for chores specifically. And that is one, for at least in my house, what has worked really well and works with a lot of neurodiverse kids is like there's a privilege attached to doing your chores and taking care of yourself. So in our house, screens are very powerful. So my kids have to, do everything they're supposed to do at school, do all their homework and do all their chores, and then they get to do 1 hour of screens a day. And so that's just all built in. Right? And if they choose not to do the homework, they choose not to do their chores, they can choose that. But then also they don't get screens and then if they want screens tomorrow, they're gonna have to clean up even more. So there's like one natural consequence that you could consider. Like what's the priority that we're earning like baseline to be able to participate in any privileges, which might be sports and friends and screens, all of that. You have to
Yeah.
take care of your basics at home, right? And chores might be your basics.
That makes sense.
And I also, my kids earn allowance for doing their chores because I want to teach them how to use money, right? So they
Right.
get
That makes
allowance, they
sense.
save some of it, they give some of it, they get to spend some of it on whatever junk they want to spend it on, like so much Robux, whatever they're into, right?
Yeah.
But that's another motivation is I'm paying them to do their chores.
Okay.
And they have more chores than just their room. But now I'm like reinforcing it, right? Like you're getting money. And like I don't often buy them toys. If they want toys, they can choose to use their allowance. Right. So you can think
Okay.
about that with your 16-year-old, right? They probably wants money for gas and the movies and activities, right? And
Mhm.
so he won't be motivated by allowance if you always just give him the money.
Mhm.
But if you give him like, hey, like if you want this extra thing, you need to earn money for it. Or if you want
Yeah.
cash in your pocket to go out with your friends, you got to have done your chores at home.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be sad and you can go with them, but like you're not going to have any money.
Makes sense.
And so if he always has the money he wants, he's not going to be motivated by that. But like, especially at 16, we want him to be earning money at least at home for doing stuff around the house. And then maybe
Sure.
even, with a job and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I wanna go back.
Okay.
You were saying that you parent your 3 kids differently.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like? Because we hear a lot about, like, authoritarian, authoritative,
Mm.
gentle parenting, permissive parenting, all of that. So kind of talk about how you parent each of your 3 differently and what that
Yeah.
looks like.
Okay. So there are 3 main types of parenting. It's authoritarian, authoritative, and permissive, right? And so
Mhm.
all the research shows that the most effective way is the authoritative, I think.
Right.
Authoritarian and
Yes.
authoritative are very similar words, and I do get them confused, which is kind of silly. It's a parenting code.
Authoritarian is the, like, "No,
That's
you're
like
gonna
the
do it because
strict,
I
yeah,
said
very
to."
high
That's how
standards,
a lot
very
of us were
low
parented.
compassion.
Yes,
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
were 80s and 90s. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Permissive is like all gentleness, cuddles, and no boundaries, right? So
Right.
authoritative is the balance where I have very high standards for you, very clear boundaries, and also like so much love and compassion and understanding. And so
Yes.
there's a lot of different parenting styles that fall under that umbrella.
Mhm.
Um, Some I just find work differently for different kids. So I wouldn't say I ascribe to like everything in gentle parenting, although I like some of a lot
Yeah.
of the authoritative styles. My approach is like more on behavioral science and neuroscience and like kind of
Mm,
like using those approaches for what works best for your kid. And so when I say I parent my kids differently, it's not necessarily like a different style or a different book, but like I'll give you an example. I have 3 kids who have all had meltdowns in their life, right? Lots of
right.
them. And the
As
way I
they do.
respond to all their meltdowns are very different. So one of my kids,
Okay.
when melting down, needs to be left alone.
Okay.
Will not calm down if I'm in the room. And actually that was really hard for me because I want to help. Like if you're upset,
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
be
yeah,
there. But I was noticing that like that would it would continue to rev this child up. So
yeah,
from a young age, I realized, okay, this child, when they're at a certain point, needs time alone. Cool. I will do that. And I'm right outside usually, right? Like I'm there. They
yeah.
know I'm there when they're ready, but they need that time. I have another kid that will more have the meltdown and like kind of totally shut down. So like can no longer talk, cannot ask questions, like just like completely shut down.
Yeah.
That child needs me there and needs me doing more sensory things, not talking, maybe just being there, like kind of next to them, giving them time to come out of it. Like that's a different thing, right?
Mm,
So very different. And then the third kid, of course, like during his meltdowns, he likes to yell and scream as loud as possible, which then is very triggering for some of my sound sensitive kids. So
yep.
what I found for my third one is we actually, I hope if I let him go, he runs around in crazy circles and works himself up. So this one actually needs to be
Mm,
carried and
okay.
kinda like that little pressure of a little squeezy.
Yep.
Um, and then we go outside more for the other kids' benefit, and we walk up and down the street until he's done getting all his mad out. And I don't think
Mm,
CPS has been called on me yet, but you will often see me. I think we're growing out of it a little bit, but that's what calms this one down the fastest. So much of it is like they have big emotions inside, right? All 3 of my kids have very big feelings. And so those feelings are hard to process.
yeah.
I use the example like a typical kid, their feelings are like a little match. And so they just go, and the feeling's gone. They're like, oh, I feel mad. Okay, now I'm better, right?
Yep.
Our kids, they have a campfire. So when they
Yeah.
just blow on it, nothing happens. So they just need a lot more support in knowing how to handle those big feelings. And often it is like movement or yelling or something sensory or deep pressure. Yeah. I mean, and I do this for myself. I do a lot of nervous system regulation with moms because all of us are under chronic stress and just go into fight or flight over like the
Facts.
sock on the floor. Right. And so
Big facts.
we have to get ourselves regulated first. So yeah, sometimes if I'm mad, I'll like go and I'll actually like stomp my feet like on a walk. I think my neighbors think I'm crazy, and I kind of am, so it's okay. But then I even imagine like the mad is like my footprints of like mad footprints, and I'm like, stomping all the mad out, and then that helps relieve it, right? It's okay that it's there, and I'm gonna go process it because I don't need to keep carrying it, right? We just acknowledge it and release it.
I
And
think
every
that's the difference though, because for you, you're saying I stomped the mat out, and
Mhm,
so many of us have been taught, no, you're fine. And so we just we don't think that that's okay for us to
100%.
do or to feel or to have. And so
Mhm.
we just keep it in. And this is why we have all the diseases.
Yes. Well, that's what I say so much is like a lot of us, like I was raised more, great parents that are trying their very best, but it was more like the toxic positivity culture, right? So if I was upset about something, it was more just like be grateful, just be happy.
Mm,
It was like with the best of intentions, but that taught this generation, and definitely taught me just to like, if there was a negative emotion, like that was bad or wrong. I shouldn't have negative emotions. So I learned to shove them down and completely ignore them and then just look
that
happy
makes
all the time.
sense.
And that was not the intent, and the part of that was just my personality as the oldest daughter,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yep. Yep.
yes, I'm just gonna look strong for everyone and ignore, right? And that hit me really hard with like, anxiety and some chronic health issues like in my 30s where I'm like, oh, I can't actually ignore my emotions. So that's been
Yeah.
part of my really big journey too. And like kind of my passion is helping other moms with that history where we're so disconnected with our emotions. And then we're trying to teach our kids with big feelings how to manage their emotions and we don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about that a lot on this podcast. I'm
Okay.
the oldest daughter, the only daughter, the
Okay.
oldest. And so yeah, no, and I grew up with very again, parents that did the best that they could with what they
Yeah.
had, but also there was a lot of trauma as
Mm.
in our family growing up, a lot of death and um I had a brother that needed a lot more emotional support than what the rest of us did and so
Yeah.
that took away from our attention and all of that.
Yeah.
But, but yeah, like I was the if you stop crying or I'm going to give you something to cry about
100%.
parenting. And so
Yeah.
yeah, that yeah,
It's
same
crazy.
same.
I'm the oldest of 3 girls. I have 2 younger sisters, and
Yeah,
I remember one of my parents saying that to me regularly, and
yeah.
my sisters don't have that memory.
Really?
Yes.
That's
It's
interesting.
fascinating. I was like, "Wait, what?" And they're like, "No, we don't remember dad ever saying
I've
that." And I'm
never
like,
asked my brothers about that. I should
"Yeah."
ask my brothers
And
if
so
they remember.
I don't know what that is. Like, all our memories are different, right? Maybe I took it
Yeah,
more seriously than they did. Maybe it was more to me because 'cause I'm the oldest. Maybe I was crying more than they were. I have no idea.
that's really interesting.
They have no memory of that, where I remember that as, like, a key phrase.
My mom has 2 sisters. My mom's the oldest, and the middle sister remembers my grandmother as being a yeller, but
Uh-huh.
my aunt and my mom, so baby and
Yeah,
oldest, are like, "No, she was not a yeller at all."
yeah. And you
That's
know what?
what's interesting.
That's fascinating too, 'cause, something that comes up commonly with neurodiverse kids also is, like, interpretation of yelling or volume or tone.
Okay.
And so I don't know if this is in your house, but I have one child who if I get so normally both my husband and I, we both worked in this field with kids, like, in very severe behavior. So, like, we're
Okay.
both really good professionally and, like, have transferred it to home to stay calm. It takes a
Oh, what
lot.
a
We
blessing
really
for your
don't
children.
it is, and,
Wow.
like, God gave them to us for a reason. But, I don't yell. I'm just that's really not what I go to. Like, I'll,
Yeah,
like, kinda
yeah,
just get overwhelmed and shut down. That's more what I'll do, but I really don't yell. But if
yeah.
I am feeling the slightest bit irritated and my tone changes, like, you wouldn't be able to hear it
Uh-huh.
in my tone. You'd have to know me really well to hear it in my tone. And if this
Yeah,
one child hears that, they genuinely interpret it as yelling.
yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
that can also be, like, part of that processing the world differently, but then that I talk to a lot of parents about that. They're like, "My kids say I'm yelling, and I'm not yelling."
Yeah.
Now I remember my dad saying that he's not yelling while yelling. So I'm like, sometimes it could be us, like, we are yelling, right? And it was more that he has a really loud voice, so maybe he didn't mean to be yelling, but it yeah. But also so we could not be aware of our own volume or tone, or, like, our kids could just be perceiving it differently than how we're intending it. And
Yeah.
regardless, that's their experience, and they're experiencing yelling. They're
Yeah.
experiencing all the things that happen in, to their brain when a parent yells at them. And so
Yes.
that's really important too. There's also some social aspects of it. There are times where I actually am genuinely calm and I'm not even irritated. And this same child, if they are more
Yeah.
heightened, will say I'm yelling. And it's more like misinterpreting facial expressions or even some of the like
Yeah.
some kids like when they're really triggered and more in their like they kind of regress to an earlier developmental phase where everyone feels the way they do. You know what I mean? Like people
Yeah.
all right? Babies think everyone feels what they feel, and it's like a while before they can learn that different people have different emotions at different times. And so
Mm,
this child kind of regresses back to that where if they're mad, then I must be mad. And so it's like
mm.
even educating that, like, wait, look at my face, right? Like look at the signs, right? Or if they're that upset, I don't argue with them in the moment because that's ridiculous. That doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, that is their perception when I'm genuinely not.
Okay, this is a super wild and random question, but
Oh, right.
is it possible for everything that you know about neuroscience and behavioral analysis or analysts and everything else, um, is it possible that someone never gets out of that stage where they believe that whatever they're feeling, everybody else should be feeling as well?
Yeah. I don't think that's super common. And I think that would be more like a therapy
As an
thing.
adult, though?
But I mean, there are definitely adults that could think that. There might be other delays also along with that, I think, to like be fully in that stage all the time. Um, that's a little bit out of my expertise, so I'm not 100% sure, but based on what I know, that would be my best guess. What I do know about neurodiverse people though is they have a lot of like their skills are developed differently. So they'll
Mhm.
have like this skill is like advanced and then this skill is like down here.
Right.
So it's like a lot of splinter skills where most people that have developed more typically everything kind of develops together. And so that makes every neurodiverse kid hard to know. Like you can't assume you know anything about a person just because they have a diagnosis of autism or
Sure. Yeah.
ADHD. Like you know nothing about them except maybe be more curious. Because like
I've heard
I used to
that
do
they
this.
I've
Oh,
heard
go
that
ahead.
people say if you've met an ad if you've met someone with autism, You've literally just met one
You
person
know,
with autism.
one person with
But
yeah,
yeah,
you cannot
exactly.
generalize that at all.
Yeah,
For my
no.
last business, I used to go out and do assessments for new families, and so it was all kids that had been diagnosed with autism, but I would get, like, a packet from medical insurance that would have, like, basically just their name and their address, and I wouldn't even often know the gender of the child, and so I'm gonna show up at a house, and it was just, like, a wild, like, really cool experience because I would show up at a house, I don't know if it's a girl I know the age, right? I don't know if
Yeah,
it's a I wouldn't know if it was a girl or boy, so I would, like, try to set up the call with the parent by saying "they," sometimes even until they, like, volunteered the gender because I didn't wanna be wrong.
yeah,
I would
right.
show up and sometimes I would meet, some kids would just be, like, total presenting completely typical, like, a very normal reaction, totally fine. Some kids would come and I would greet them, and then they would be nonverbal and wouldn't be able to respond at all to me,
Yeah.
right? Some kids would not even care that there was a new person at the door. I have one of my favorite kids, like, just open the door before the mom was, like, running up to try to, like, stop him, and he opened the door, and he's like, "Tell me how many fan blades you have at your house." And I was like, "Okay, it's
Oh,
gonna be like this." And we had, like, a great conversation
yeah,
about fans where I realized I know very little about how the fan blades in my own home. But, like, I would never know what I was gonna get.
that's a lot how my 5-year-old is. He,
Yeah.
his big thing is and he's never I've had him tested for autism,
Uh-huh.
and they're like, I mean, he has some quirks, but, like, we don't really know. His big thing is he wants to know everyone's name.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
when we drive up, like, if we go through a drive-through,
Mhm.
he'll be like, "Hey, what's your name?" And they're like
Uh-huh.
they can't even hear him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, like, neighbors as we're walking along, and he may have met them 6 other times,
And he'll ask
but
them every
it
time.
yeah, every time, "What's your name?" And they're like, "Tasha."
So sometimes neurodiverse kids do that because they want to have the interaction,
Yeah,
and that's, like, an easy question. Like, they can't think of other things to
okay.
say. It's like a way to initiate conversations.
Mhm.
So there's, like, often, like, little if you notice, like, those patterns with your kid, that's just a
Yeah,
common neurodiverse way, like, when there's, like, maybe some social challenges where it's like, "I really want attention from this person," and they
yeah,
usually find one phrase or something that, like, works to get a response, and then they say that to everyone all the time indiscriminately. And so then the
interesting.
next step is, like, just, like, here's different like, maybe when we go to our neighbor, you could ask, "How are you today?" We go
Okay.
to this neighbor, you could say, "Oh, your lawn looks nice." Like, you could even do, like, a little
Yeah.
bit of, like, prepping before those encounters to give him different like, more of a variety of ways to, like, start those conversations.
Not too long ago, I told him, I said, "Hey," because his thing is, "What's your name?" And then they tell him, and he's like, "Okay, my name is Zain Alariki, and this is Mama, and this is Mason, and this is Baba." And, like, so he so he doesn't realize that Mama and Baba are also Cameron and Muhammad,
Yes.
but so
Right.
you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
and so I told him, I said, um, "You don't have to tell everybody that your name is Zain Alariki." And he
uh-huh.
goes I said, "You can just say my name is Zain." And he goes, "Okay, but then how are they gonna know that I'm an Alariki?" Like, that's so
Yeah.
important to
It's like that black and white.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
this
yeah,
is my name
yeah.
at the top of my
It's
name.
very yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's it's wild
Yeah. Oh, I love
how
that.
each kid I know he is hilarious.
Yeah.
So,
It sounds like it. But those
yeah,
hilarious kids are often a handful, but, like, so much life and joy and brightness,
yeah,
and then yes.
yeah. Okay, so since this is a marriage podcast,
Yes.
several couples, I mean, many of the listeners that listen are also listening because they're considering divorce.
Mhm.
So, what do you see as a behavior analyst
Yeah.
for, children who have gone through divorce? Kind of
Mhm.
talk about the effects of kids on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna answer this in a slightly different way, but if it's not what you want, you can I'll answer that one too. But I think,
Okay.
like, in general,
Yeah.
when you have a child like this, so if you have a strong-willed, highly sensitive, or neuroverse I mean, there's lots of research on it. If you have a child with a behavioral diagnosis, your divorce rate increases. I think it goes
Yeah.
up to 70 or 80% from 50% because of the stress that these behaviors put on the relationship. So many people come to me and they're like, "Hey, I had a really happy marriage and then we had kids, right? And now we're
Mhm.
fighting all the time about how to respond and we have different parenting approaches and neither one's working, but we're not on the same page." And so it can just be like such a source of stress in a marriage, right?
Yeah.
And then if it does result in divorce, then we are adding I mean, sometimes that is definitely the best if that's what you need to do, especially if it's, unsafe or there's any harm, like definitely. But it is going to introduce more trauma right, for the child and more adjustment for the child. So then usually in the divorce process, now there's even more behaviors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now
Yeah.
the child's being parented very differently by two people that still maybe don't know the right way.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily solve the problem, right? If that is
Yeah.
if the behavior is one of the main marital stresses. And so what I have found is when we work on just like everyone understanding what is happening for this kid and we get on the same page with how to respond, like that can make your marriage much happier. That can
Okay.
reduce a lot of the strain, right? That can take out so much of the tension. And then now maybe we can work on the other things, right? On communication and the other things that make a marriage great. But that will help your child's behaviors if there's like a healthy marriage that stays
Yeah.
together. That does have a positive impact on your child's behavior now and in the future. Now that's not always possible, so there's no I don't wanna say anything, to make anyone feel bad if that is the choice that they've made, then you can always like, my thing is, like, let's just figure it out. Let's figure out why your child's doing this. Let's figure out the best way to help, and then if you stay together, if you divorce, then at least one or maybe both of you will know what your kid needs, and then you'll
Makes
have the skills
sense.
to support your kid when they are acting up more because of this big change. We can't prevent big change or traumatic things happening in our child's life. So that's not like it's not possible to avoid all of that. And kids are very resilient and they can learn a lot through that experience if the parent is equipped to know how to support their brain in going through all of that.
So for you, do people like they can call you and you do everything through Zoom or you or like how do you work with people?
I work with people, everything is through Zoom.
Okay.
I work with people one on one, or I have a group coaching program for moms that lasts for
Okay.
3 months. It opens up every 3 months. And
Love that.
so, yeah, and that one is really fun because so many moms get on these calls and they feel like they're the only one. And then they get on the call and everyone's like, my bedtimes are hard too. My kid won't clean their room
Oh
either. Like, there's so
yeah.
many like Me Too moments where
Yeah.
so many of us just are like suffering in silence. Maybe our friends' kids or our family's kids aren't having these same issues. So we think we're the only one.
Yeah.
But then I talk to these moms back to back to back all day. And so
Yeah.
I love, like, putting them together and they can learn from each other and just, like, feel like they're not alone, which is so important.
Dig into bedtime because I do feel like
Oh, yeah.
that is a absolute like I was on Threads this morning and it
Uh-huh.
was like what's the one phrase that you say the most in your house or something like that and it was
Mhm.
like it's time for bed or it's
Yes.
time for a bath or something
Uh-huh.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
and in arguing, that is the one my 5-year-old, I don't need a bath. I don't need a bath
Yeah.
today. And I'm like, "Bro, it was 95 degrees and you are
Yeah.
sweaty pig. Like,
Yeah.
no, you do need a bath.
Yeah.
And look at your
What if
feet."
you just don't argue? And what if you're like, "That's okay that you don't need one, we're
With
gonna take."
him with him, that
Yeah.
works. With him,
Yeah.
he is one that he will argue to the death,
Yeah.
but if
Yeah.
you look at him and say, "Zane, this is not how this is happening,"
Yeah.
or "This
Yeah.
is not negotiable," he
Yes.
doesn't like it, but he'll
Yeah.
be like, "Fine," and then he'll go
Yes.
do it.
Yeah. That's
I'm
what I do with
worried
my
though, that's
kids.
not gonna work when he's, like, 16.
Yeah, I mean, that's I if you start young, it might.
Okay.
If your kids learn that, like, once you say something, it's happening no matter what,
Yeah,
and, like, you're not gonna yell, you're not gonna argue, like, it's just, like, a calm fact,
yeah,
then it makes it much easier later. It just takes them a little bit to learn that.
okay. Well, here's to hoping.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny though, my one thing that happens, of course, is, like, we'll, say something. I don't know, one of my kids will say something that's absolutely wrong, like, the sky is green, let's say as an
Yeah,
example, right?
yeah,
And so my policy is because I have a lot of negotiators that want everything to be exact. I'll give you the correct information one time, right? I'll be like, "Oh, actually, the sky is blue," right?
yeah,
And then if they're like, "No, it's green," I'm just like, "Okay." Like, I don't I'm gonna give you the right information once, and if you wanna believe it's green, I am not gonna sweat about it. You go ahead and believe that.
yeah,
It's happened in the car sometimes though, where my husband gets sucked into it a little bit more, where he's like,
yeah,
"No, look at it," right? Like, it's blue. This is not really what happens, but, like, it's things like
yeah,
this, right?
it's an
"It's
example.
blue," right? Like, "Look out the window." And I'm like, "Why are you arguing?" Like, because you never change their minds in those moments. So I'm like, I will always and now my older one is starting to, like, wanna correct the younger one, like,
Yeah,
and then gets frustrated when the younger one won't agree, and I'm like,
yeah,
"Hey, give them the right information once, and then
yeah,
just let them think that." Like, there's
let it
no
go.
let it go. That's okay. They'll figure it out. So,
That makes sense. That
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Uh, okay, so bath time. What are your tips and tricks for bath time?
Bath time,
Or, like, bedtime
oh,
routines?
bedtime. Bedtime. Okay.
Yeah.
So bedtime routines in general, it's going to depend on the kid, right? It's going to
Okay.
depend on a lot of things, but in general, bedtime and getting ready to go out of the house in the morning, right, tend to be challenging times because the kid has
Yep.
to do a lot of things that they could care less about, are not important to them. Sometimes
Yep.
they're like sensory uncomfortable, right? Maybe a
Yep.
newer skill they're learning. And it's usually to go to a place they don't want to go, right? Kids would probably rather just stay home with
Makes
mom than go to
sense.
school. And little kids don't want to go to sleep. So like they have zero motivation to do all of these non-preferred things. And so
Okay.
usually what we'll look at is like, a lot of different things, but for your listeners in general, it works for most of these kind of kids, is there just needs to be something in it for them. There needs
Okay.
to be something, because if I'm saying, "Go to bed, go to bed, go to bed," now we're arguing, they're getting a lot of attention from me because 'cause I'm
Yeah.
repeating so many times, and then we're arguing about it, so now they're getting to escape brushing their teeth because they can't brush their teeth while they're arguing with me, right? So, like, instead, what I like to do in general is we have something that they are working for. So at bedtime, I like to have it be maybe reading the book time, maybe we play a calm game together, maybe we snuggle. There's something that they really, and maybe it changes every night and they pick because they change their
Yeah.
mind a lot, that's
Okay.
fine. 5 or 10 minutes of something they like to do, that if they get ready in time, we have time for that. And if they don't get ready in time, then we don't do that, because we don't.
Okay.
And then when they're brushing their teeth and everything, I'm not saying, "Come on, let's go brush your teeth. Look what time it is," right? Which they don't even care
Yeah.
about. I'm saying, "Hey, remember, like, I can't wait to beat you at Uno. I'm feeling lucky today," right? So now I'm not engaging in a power struggle with them. I'm like reminding them of something that they want.
Right. That makes sense. That's
One
good.
of which that will probably work for your kids. Um, that can make everything much easier.
Okay. I love that. That's good. What would you say are like your top 3 tips for creating positive behaviors in kids?
The top 3, I would say, so I actually have a free guide called How to Get Your Kids to Listen that
I love
has
that.
3 simple strategies. I can't remember which ones are on it, but
It's
I
fine.
would
Can you
encourage your
send that
listeners
to me and I'll
to
put it in the
yes,
show notes?
100%.
Okay.
I'll give you guys one right now though, but then get the e-guide to get more. I think like one of the best things that we can do for our kids is spend like 5 to 10 minutes one-on-one with them. I call it like the magical time, where we are just engaging in their world. We're not lecturing, we're not teaching, we're not correcting unless it's like really serious. We're just doing what they want to do. So maybe that's a princess party, maybe that's listening to them talk about Roblox for, the whole time, whatever. You're getting
Yeah.
in their world on their level. You're not giving any negative feedback. You're just enjoying them. You're maybe finding things that you like about them to praise them for, and you're just entering in their world one on one. This is
And
one
this
of the
is
most
5 to 10
powerful
minutes
things.
every day.
As much as you can.
Okay.
Okay, it's not, it doesn't be perfect. It's not like if you miss one day, then your child's messed up forever, right?
Sure.
But the more you can do it and make it a habit, that connection, you're going to see a lot more of those positive behaviors, and you're going to have more of a bank of connection to draw from to get you
Yeah.
through the hard times.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I love that. That's good. And I think as much as teenagers kind of like to hole up in the cave and,
Mhm.
not come out, they still need that. They
Yeah,
still
yeah,
need to be hugged. They still need
right.
to have that one-on-one time.
We just the older they get, the more we have to, well, I think always we have to just enter into their world, right?
Yeah.
But, like, never like, you can't take your 5-year-old, like, out to coffee and have a serious conversation, right?
Right.
That's not how it happens. But maybe when you're playing a game with them, or maybe if you're shooting hoops with your older kid, right? Like, it's like, or maybe going on a walk. Kids like to talk on walks, or sometimes in the car rides, you have the most magical things, right? Because 'Cause
Yep.
you're not, like,
Yep.
directly looking at each
The
other.
car rides are a big
The
time for
car
my
rides,
teenager.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or a walk, so it's, like, just really intentional, like, "No, I'm gonna drive, to that one because I want that time," right? So just the
Yeah.
more you can create those moments where it's, like, low pressure, um, and kinda whatever they're into.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm gathering from everything you've said, everything comes back to your child. That it's just every child is different,
Yep.
and in order to know how to parent them, you've got to figure out what works for that kid.
Yes. And when you figure out your kid, you have figured out your kid,
Yeah,
and you're gonna have to figure out the next kid.
makes so much
What
sense.
I love about the guide process, though, is it's enough that once you figure that out, it works for every single, it's, like, customizable
Yeah,
enough that it
yeah,
works for every single kid for every single behavior. So when you get really good about going through it, then you can use that for your kids for their whole life, for all the things that come up. And so
Okay.
that's what I really love about that is where it's specific enough that you can learn how to do it and apply it, but it's also customized, highly custom to your kid, where it will actually work for these kids that are just learn a little bit differently and are a little bit
Yeah.
trickier.
How long does it usually take for a family to work with you and to get through the 5 steps?
I think like it depends. That's how I answer most of my questions. Sorry. I would say most parents work with me for to 12 months to get like
Okay.
max benefits. Some parents keep working with me and we just kind of do mindset. Like personally, I will always have a coach because I love to
Yeah.
clear out my brain
Same,
and figure out all the thoughts.
same.
So some parents have worked with me for 5 or 6 years because they want to keep that work it, but then it stops being just about parenting because we figured out a lot of that parenting comes up sometimes with
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
always comes up with more high needs kids, but we also talk about work and marriage, anything that is like on their mind, and we sort it out. My programs are 3 months for the group, and then I work with parents one-on-one for 6 months is how I like sell those programs is like a really good entry point, and so they get
Yeah.
really good results in either one of those. But I find that like it kind of maximizes at the 6 to 12 month mark.
Okay.
But it depends, like, if you just have one strong-willed kid, maybe that's gonna be just the 6 months, right? I have a client who has 3 neurodiverse kids, and so that's taken longer to figure all of them, right? That figure them all of them out, and then it also depends on us, like, how connected are we to our emotions? How hard is that, right? How
Yeah.
easily can we release our triggers? And that just takes some people longer than others, which is totally fine, but
Yeah.
we get there.
Okay. How can people find you? Are you on socials? Are you on Substack?
I'm on socials, at Confidently Mommin on
Okay.
Facebook and Instagram. And then
Okay.
my website is www.melissaschultz, SCHULZ.com. And
Okay.
that's also where they can find the free guide, but I'll send you the link directly to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Awesome.
if you get that free guide, then you are on my email list. And so then
Yeah.
you're the first one to know about all my events. I usually do at least one event a month that is just helping parents. So, like, I just did a free webinar last week. I have some really cool stuff for summer coming up.
Awesome. Melissa, thank you so much for all of
Thank
your
you.
expertise today. This has been incredible. I feel like I have, it was nice because usually I'm the one coaching and now
Yeah.
the one being coached. So like this
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense. So I love this. I also love that, you've never got everything figured out. So,
100%.
you can always learn. So
Yes.
that's so much fun. So,
That's what life's
all right.
about, right? It's like always
Yeah.
learning. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having me.
We've all seen it. The messy social media messages, the public tea spilling, and the absolute embarrassment of finding out that your life is a lie through a Facebook post or an Instagram message that your spouse thought was hidden. What if it didn't have to be like that, though? What if you could find out before their affair got too deep? Statistics show that over 20% of marriages deal with infidelity, and most affairs last for years because they thrive in the dark. It's time to turn the lights on. Verified.com is the world's first searchable relationship registry. It's not just an app, it's a digital boundary for your marriage. When you register your spouse on Verified, you are claiming your relationship on a global scale, whether you're talking, you're dating, or you're married. If another man or woman is being told your spouse is single or divorced and they search for your spouse on the registry, they find you instead. Now, here's the game changer. Verified allows you to speak one-on-one and directly with that other person. No gaslighting from your spouse. No he said, she said. No, oh my God, you went through my phone. How could you betray my trust like that? And zero social media drama. Just the truth, person to person, before things go too far. Don't wait for that gut feeling to become a nightmare. Because even if you think your spouse would never, there's an even better chance that you just never know. Register your spouse today using the link in the show notes and lock in your legacy to protect your peace.
This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional counseling or therapy. Every couple story is unique, so take what's helpful and leave the rest. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that neither I, Cameron Thompson Alaricki, Married and Connected, or Recognizing Potential Coaching are responsible for any outcomes related to what you apply from this show, especially if you are not a client of mine.